What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Whiskey Morgue Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. And tonight, it's not just any episode. It's Christmas time, and I want to do something festive. And my friend here, Steven LaMorte, who was on the podcast earlier in the season, he just happened to come out with a documentary called Christmas Chaos, The Making of the Mean One. So what better to celebrate the holidays than to share a drink with Steven and talk about this quite epic documentary. So Steven, thank you for jumping on here and doing this with me, man.
Yes, thanks for having me. Ho, ho, holy hell, here we are.
I was gonna say I'm a little bit underdressed. If you're watching the video version, I have a shirt that says Cheers. It's a Vans shirt, and on the back I have a skeleton who's drinking, and he has Christmas lights. But if you are watching, you're noticing that Steven is way better dressed than me for the holiday. I should have at least,
Rocking the mean one.
yeah, the
Hat.
mean one hat. Sweet. Is that a mean one sweater too, or is it just a Christmas
This
sweater?
one isn't a mean one sweater because the mean one sweater's in the wash because I just wore it. But we do have mean one. I made with my wife, we made a mean one ugly sweater. Um, and yeah, so I rock it every once in a while.
It would fit perfectly for the ugly sweater, right? It's which has become the fashionable sweater, anyways. It's no longer ugly sweater.
Right. Well, I saw some ugly sweaters the other day in the store, and I was like, you reach a point where the ugly sweater gets so cool that it swings back around and just becomes a regular sweater. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, all right, I guess here we are. Then it's got to go back, and it'll be like they're going to get so high fashion that they're going to be ugly again. And you're like, okay, here we are.
Um, so the last time that we connected, it was summer when we recorded. Before we jumped on here, we were just chatting very quickly. We had talked about Screamboat, and we talked about the mean one. There was tons that's happened. First of all, congratulations on the Fangoria Award. Huge,
Thank
huge
you.
accomplishment. I know how proud I was. I'm like in my living room cheering. My wife's like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, Steven just won an award, and so it was a great moment, right? Because to see indie filmmakers, and I have a greater appreciation, even though you won it for Screenboat, making films after watching the documentary. So the first time we connected, we talked about the mean one. We went over a few things. It's so legit that you got what's his name, Flip Cobbler, to who was in
Hmm.
in the film, but also wrote for Disney and did Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, which is awesome. This started off as a trailer. You shared that it was just supposed to be like a fun idea that kind of just snowballed and kept going. And we'll go into how this became a feature film, especially with the documentary. And the last thing that I thought was really important from a takeaway from our last conversation is accidentally Terrifier 3 lifted all of your shots frame for frame. And if I'm not lazy, I'm one day going to put them side by side, maybe even in this episode, and just show both intros and get us in trouble. But we had a lot of fun talking about it initially, so I'm excited to after watching this documentary to kind of unpack it a bit more.
I love that. I mean, it was, it's so funny. We have all this footage and some of it's so lo-fi because we weren't planning to make a documentary about, how we made the movie. It was just kind of like, oh, we had just come out of COVID. And so it was like, I was used to vlogging and just documenting things. I'm like, oh, let's see where any of this goes. And now it's a record of like the most insane part of my life and just this like unbelievable indie dream that starts off as a tiny seed of an idea and turns into, this kind of big, kind of crazy thing.
So, okay, so that's perfect because my first question was like, did you know that you were going
Cheers,
to
by the
turn
way.
this?
This is
Yeah, hold on. Before we get into this, I have my fright rags, Glenn, and I have some rye whiskey pulled in there. What are you drinking?
I made myself an old fashioned. It's
Oh,
out
beautiful.
of a glass that's got my name on it. I don't know if you can see it with
Oh,
the
fancy.
blurring.
Yeah, no,
La
that's
Morte.
yeah, I like that. Well, cheers,
Yeah.
Stephen. Before we get into chatting.
Merry Christmas. Yep, it
So,
works.
yeah, really nice. Rye is always like a Christmas drink for me, so I had to make sure I pulled out a good rye for tonight. So yeah, I was curious if you had answered that if you this was already a plan, but then the flip side of that is when did you decide that this would be something fun to put together and put together a documentary, having all this footage?
After the movie kind of came out, I mean, I think once the movie was out, I mean, we were in all these Regal theaters and we're in theaters at the same time. Our trailer played with Violent Night, which was like the Santa badass John Wick movie. And then like, the movie is it's a fun horror comedy, but we were in theaters at the same time as Avatar, the last one.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of wanted to like, I thought the documentary would be cool because A, it would show people just how tiny this little thing started before it sort of grew and had the footprint that it did. But also B, because I thought it was kind of inspirational because I don't know, there's something about having a dream or an idea or like a thing and just saying like, well, these are the resources we have. This is the time I have. These are the, crazy people that are going to get together and sort of help make it happen. And let's just do it and see what happens. And not, I have plenty of people who are like, wait until you have a bigger budget or wait until, you try to sell it over here, try to go do something. And I'm like, I don't want to wait. I just want to go do it. It's just, I've had this
Yeah.
idea for like a decade. It's December. Let's make the fake trailer. And then people are like, well, you should make the movie. And then, one thing led to another. And less than a year later, it's in theaters. And it's like, here we are. I'm still talking about it. It's 3 years later.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and I mean, it was a roller coaster ride because like having spoken to you about the film a bit, I thought I had a pretty good understanding of how it came together, right? And it's like the little engine that could, but man, going through the doc, like I knew we were going to be chatting. I was going to watch it anyway, and I had the pen and paper. I was just like, oh my God, this happened, and how the heck did you overcome this? I was like, and it was really well done too, because it's if you do watch it, and I strongly urge all of you to, and we'll tell you where to watch it at the end, but. It has the narration, so it continues with the same kind of like Grinch story where it's narrated and it's like, oh no, and then this happened, and so it's super entertaining. But the reality is that a film was being made here. Now, one thing before we dive into some things that I took note of, this was the first project you and Amy worked on together after getting married. So why did you want to put your relationship to the test? And would you say that it was a rewarding thing in terms of bringing you together as a couple and collaborators?
It definitely was rewarding. I mean, what I will say, because we got married after the movie came out, but we got
Okay.
engaged before we started shooting. Um, and the two things, the shoot pushed a little bit. So it ended up, I thought it was going to be shoot the movie, then propose to my now wife. And it went the other way. And so it's like, oh, we just got engaged, and also we're making this movie, which is like insane, a bizarre way to live your life. But it's been cool because I mean, making an independent film and having it start in one place and end up somewhere else, and sort of the roller coaster ride of an independent film, making its own way, and dealing with the dizzying highs and the like, in some moments, pretty like shocking and difficult lows. Is better to do it with a partner, and once now that we're on the other side of it, and looking back and seeing the Mean One crew at our wedding, you're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of this kind of started with the Green Grouch in a Santa suit. Now here we are.
That's awesome. And, I think it's some couples will try to do, they're like, you know what, we need to live together for a month or go on a vacation. And you're like, let's make an independent film. And that's the
Let's make a
truth.
horror movie. Let's
Yeah,
make
let's
a
make
low budget
a,
horror movie. That's the test.
yeah. So, I mean, you're destined to succeed as a couple, persevering through that. And like you said, a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Now, the first thing I want to start off with is like you mentioned, low budget. Like we are bootstrapping along the way. And it was really cool to pull back the curtain a bit and see certain things that you did in the film. I mean, at least I can say like I'm not a filmmaker, but then you had me fooled because there's nothing like it's okay. Yeah, you're aiming kind of B horror, you're bootstrapping, but the cave in the living room. Okay, I
Hmm.
didn't know like so. We won't give too much away, but the cave is built. Was it in whose living room was it? It wasn't yours. It was
In the writer's living room. Yeah, we
okay.
built
Yeah,
one of our key sets in the writer's living room, and out of paper and spray paint, and just one big fire hazard. But it looks pretty
yeah.
good on camera, so it worked.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm believing you're immersed in this cave. The poor man's process to shooting a driving scene,
Uh-huh.
chef's
Yep.
kiss, like awesome, right? And I was like, but it's cool stuff like that that I'm sure you've done it a million times before in trying to make things work. But what I think was cool was that I feel like the money that was spent seemed like it was put towards really important things. So like the first thing I noted, and you guys talked about the importance of like Tatiana and the makeup
Hmm.
in terms of David having like mobility in his face. You had added that for him. The stunts. Your stunt coordinator. What was his name?
Hmm.
Terrence.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, amazing. And you got to pay him in Coke Zero, which is excellent that he would just,
Indie
I would,
filmmaker's dream. Yeah.
yeah, I'd get paid in Coke Zero too. Was there one other thing that you can share that you maybe didn't show up in the doc that was a really cool, like bootstrapping hack to film something or for production?
Ooh, there's a couple of locations in the montage where because we're an independent film and we're so tiny, we're like, oh, this scene's supposed to take place in a store. We don't have a store location booked. I guess we could be on the street in front of the store. But what if, can you go ask them if we could just like go inside? There's only four of us here. And so there are some locations that aren't stolen. We had permission to be there, but it was just like on the day we'd have an idea like, hey, instead of shooting on the street where we're permitted, let's go inside the store. Or we can't make the whole town look like Christmas. So let's move to this interior. You think they'll let us go in there? Like a lot of scrappy stuff like that happens. Or like
Yeah.
begging them to let us put that goat in the movie because we're shooting on this animal preserve and there's the goat. And I'm like, man, wouldn't it be great if they let us put the goat in the movie? And so like our independent film, I mean, I've done talking animal movies before. I know what it costs to like have an animal and have a wrangler and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like well beyond our budget. But when you're at a preserve and the person that owns the farm has the goat and they're like, yeah, we can walk in over there, no problem. And this is a goat that like they do petting things with. So he was cool just standing there and he's like, okay, hand the reins to the actor and I'll be right here. And like, oh my God, we got a goat in our movie. Like to this day, it's still like that freaking goat. Like I love that goat so much. Like that's just the problem solving of indie filmmaking.
I mean, the movie's called The Mean One, but I guess the lesson in the documentary is like being kind goes a long way, and being able to put things together or like get a goat in your movie. So was there like as a filmmaker, I'm sure like there's always like budget, right?
Mhm.
Again, my observation is like I feel like the money was spent in the right places with like the stunt work and the makeup. Did you have like a big pie graph that kind of like you off the bat knew where you wanted to put the little money you had into?
Not necessarily because we shot the first 2 weeks and then we retreated and then we came back and we reshot some stuff and then shot the rest of the movie for another week or
Okay.
so. So, we started with like a web series budget and then, we're going to need a little bit more here and then we're going to need a little bit more there. And then, well, we have to have the bar set. So I guess, we'll start throwing things in and, you know, um, we knew we were going to spend money on locations and the creature effects and stuff. And then
Hmm.
as the film progressed, it became clear like we just needed more help. We needed more help to hang Christmas lights. David needed a stunt double for some of the fight scenes. Like if
Hmm.
we're gonna have all these Santas, like we need to get the Santas. They all need specialty costumes. So there's just a lot of things that in a movie with less production design you would typically like, oh, it's a web video. You bring whatever clothes you have, or we'll get it at Ross or something, and we can get five of
Yeah.
them, and that's fine. But the Santa stuff was like, nope, that's all kind of specialty. It kind of just costs what it costs.
Okay, yeah, so you had to source some authentic Santa
Hmm.
outfits. Yeah, but you know what? I guess it's a testament to friends. I think that was a big thing too, was watching the documentary. Everyone is glowing, and not just because you can chop it up and edit it, but everyone's glowing to talk about the process. And it really is a group of friends pulling together to make a film, which is super endearing. It makes you root for it more. And when I've said this before, when I talk to you or I talk to like other like Jamie from Fuzz on the Lens, like the movement of like I guess horror films right now, it feels special because it is a community of people who live it, breathe it, and put everything into it. And as consumers, it's easy just to be like, oh, let's see this movie here, and we can judge it, and you can be critics and whatnot. But the documentary was really cool because again, it just pulled back that curtain to show like what does this really look like, and most of it is you having to make phone calls to friends and being like, let's swing this and make it happen. Um, but it took
There's
off.
definitely, I mean, there's something also I think that goes with like because it's easier to make a movie now than it's ever been.
Mhm.
Even your low budget movie, your low budget slasher in the 80s and 90s, all I mean 70s and 80s, all of them without adjusting for inflation had more
Yeah,
money than the Mean One, right? Because the Mean One
yeah,
has like the budget of Terrifier 1, right? So
yeah.
I mean, this is a very, very small film. So you need people that love it and want to get in there and do it because, the Friday the 13th didn't, tiny little film, right? The original
Mhm.
Halloween, tiny little film, but they had a crew still bigger than ours. I mean, it's 12 people running around in the woods, four people working on post production. I mean, like, I made the first trailer. I'm cutting promos, like all this crazy stuff that where you have the ability to get your hands dirty without going to like big studio stuff. And I think that's what's cool about it is if you're going to make a movie this small, everyone behind the scenes has to love it because they're certainly not doing it for the money because there is none, you know? So, and I think that's a testament to the cool thing of where indie film is now than before is like before the money was bad. Now, what money? And we're still making these movies and they're
Yeah.
still coming out and they're finding their fan bases. And then like when you have that victory and we can all sit in the theater and laugh and we all see that damn goat and we're like, oh my God, there's the freaking goat. Like it's in our movie and we're here together and like we did it and not like the royal we. The we
Yeah.
in these two rows here are the like we literally did it. And that's why you get the Terrifier team is like so tight after three movies because they're like, oh my God, they're all rowing together in the same direction. And every time
Yeah.
they like discover a new world or something, it's like, oh my God, we all did it. We never thought we'd work on a movie that would be in Halloween Horror Nights. That's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So it's very
Yeah.
cool. It's really
A,
fun.
a ton of like pinch yourself moments for sure. So what's cool is that I think the films from the 80s, like you mentioned, these slasher films, they accidentally became like cult following films. Like, and they found their audience after like being on tape. And you hear almost like the same story recycled where I feel like maybe the long-term payoff, and again, whether it's with the Mean One, or your franchises you work with, or the Terrifier franchise, is like you almost have to play a long game, knowing that you kind of know that's what you're aiming towards, is to like to build the cult following. And you're going to conventions 3 years later, you have a documentary that comes up, you're still kind of picking up steam. I hosted a panel in Niagara Falls with Bill Diamond. It was a mixed bag of like, so it was a David stunt double from Terrifier 3, Bill
Hmm.
Diamond, and
Hmm.
the original Art the Clown, Damien's friend there, so Mike Gianelli. And when we started talking about timelines, I'm like, this, like Terrifier, man, if we go back to All Hallows Eve, like that started a long time ago. We're almost 20 years deep
Yep.
now in this, and we're seeing the payoff. And people, it almost seems like, I guess, to like the mass audience who doesn't know, it's like overnight, right? Where you've seen with the Mean One, like you're still picking up steam. You're doing the documentary, you're doing all sorts of conventions, and obviously Screamboat has been awesome as well too. But I feel like, yeah, like up front, you're signing up not to really make any money, but the hope is that you're going to find your audience and continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a very long time to become an overnight success. And I think like that's kind of the thing people don't realize is we have to kind of commit. I don't want to say commit our lives, but you really have to like it's a lifestyle choice to make a movie. I mean, it's like having a roommate, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the Mean One we worked on for 2 years, even though it was an idea I'd had for, almost a decade before. Screenboat, worked on for 2.5, 3 years. And, you can watch it for 90 minutes and be like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, that was my life for 2 years. I just did that. Like that was it. And so, choosing the projects we're going to make and which ones are going to be part of, I don't want to say part of our legacy, but part of like the franchise, the things that we've done. And
Hmm.
we'll always be known for the Main One. We'll always be known for Screenboat. What's the next thing you want, on that wall, right? What's the next thing you're going to do? And do we think this has staying power? Because the Mean One comes back every year, which is like wild to me. I mean, I saw a list that was put out, I think it was like a week ago, and it was like how to watch all the Grinch movies, or like how to watch all four Grinch movies. And I was like,
Yeah,
four Grinch movies? And we're on that list. And I was
that's
like,
awesome.
hey, we're a quarter of that list.
Yeah.
It goes Thor Ravencroft, it goes Jim Carrey, it goes Benedict Cumberbatch, and then us. What? Are you sure? Like that's on your like we're now it's reached a point where like we are one of the four movies about that character, not just a thing that exists over here in a corner. That's
Yeah.
wild.
The movie, when we talk about finding the audience, like it took off, and we mentioned now you're making these lists. Man, when in the documentary you show how it just started like trending on like Twitter and TikTok, it
Mhm.
was almost serendipitous. Like Terrifier 2 had just done really well, and David it was announced that he was part of the project. But then like the Drew Barrymore show was talking about like,
Mhm.
there was certain stuff that I kind of saw like being online, but I didn't know like Drew Barrymore was talking about the Mean One. So it was cool that showing that in the doc. But then David said, he thinks it's because it's a story that everyone grew up loving. And now you're doing this like Hallmark horror of a movie you grew up loving. Why do you think it caught fire in terms of like how well it did just catching on in social media?
I think the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously is something people really connect with. I mean, David's performance is great, and the jokes are like just full cheese. Like, take your lactate, folks. Like, the jokes are just so cheesy. It's unapologetically what it is. And I think in the same way that, there's the regular t-shirt and then there's like the punk rock t-shirt. I feel like we're
Yeah.
kind of the like outsider punk rock, like we're, emo Dr. Seuss kind of thing. Like we're its own thing. And
Yeah.
so if you like that, you're like, oh, it's the thing I know, but it's repackaged in this other thing I like. Like, oh, I enjoy this album, but have you ever heard that song, played on the electro violin? Have you ever heard it played like by a heavy metal band? Like, I mean, I really think that's what it is. And you're like, if you love the melody and you're into heavy metal, then like, oh, this is the mashup for you. And I think that's why people connected with it.
That's such a great analogy. Yeah, you definitely are like the punk rock version or whatever alternative version it is.
Right, whatever it is, alternative to
Yeah.
the, the mainstream version. And I
Yeah.
think if you're, if that's a flavor, that's what you listen to, that's a flavor you like, then, we're doing it. And I hope that people can feel how much fun we had. We didn't take it seriously when we made it, and we don't want people to take it seriously. We want you to look at this the goofy drawing and laugh. Like, I mean, some of the
Yeah.
jokes are like intentionally eye roll, dad joke groan. Oh my God, it's like a Hallmark movie. Like, yes, they're like, it's so stupid. I'm like, that's the point. So I'm
Not to be super judgmental, but I feel like when I see positive reviews, people are eating that up in terms of like like leaning into the super cheesy jokes. Like the picture, I mean the picture, the artist rendering is fantastic. And then when I've seen critics kind of try to pick it apart, I'm like, you're aware of like what this film is supposed to be. Not saying anyone can't have an opinion, but I sometimes feel like it went over the head because I'm like, it just feels very self-aware in what you made. One very
Well,
important question.
we also saw some articles too that because David was the mean one, they're like, "Oh, David's going to come back with buckets of blood." And I'm like, "Oh no, that's not the movie we made. Don't
Yeah,
tell people that." Or they're, we're expecting another, if they'd seen Terrifier 3 or they had just seen Terrifier 2 and they were expecting it to be really serious and heavy on the gore. I never said it was that. I never set out to be that. The goal was the mean one lures you in on a date night and you bring your girlfriend with you and then you go to see the movie and by the end maybe she likes it more than you, or you're holding hands, or you
yeah,
feel warm and
that's it.
fuzzy at the end. Like, that was the goal. And I do think
Yeah,
some people judged it from the wrong lens and maybe were like, oh, he's so scary. I'm like, it's not really supposed to be scary, it's supposed to be like scary-ish,
yeah. I
but
guess
everyone's
that's
entitled to their opinion.
yeah. I think that's maybe kind of like the both more blessing than curse, but blessing and curse, like having David jump on and fresh off the heels of like Terrifier, but then everyone's expecting like Grinch, Art the Clown, and David. If there's one thing I think people have understood now, kind of watching his work, even that little Joker short that he put together there, he's so versatile and such an amazing actor. And it was cool in the documentary how, and I think he mentioned he did this with all his roles, but he kind of just went in the washroom and stared at himself for a while
Yep.
and then came out transformed. And you could tell like here's someone who it's their craft. And I think that's why it's so effective in the mean one, or why it's so effective in Terrifier, and starkly different as it intended to be. But yeah, I can see how some people maybe were like looking for him to come in with a instead of Santa's sack, the garbage bag. And
Right, right.
um, a couple of things to note. A very important question: did you ever get in contact with the effects artist who disappeared in Brazil?
No, he's gone. I mean, he's not gone. I haven't heard from him. And I've still like write him every once in a while. I'm like, hey man, Greenboat, we have a thing. Any chance you can do it? He's gone. I hope he's okay. He's like one of the most talented dudes I've ever worked with, and he just vanished. He was doing all my VFX for like 2 years. Hendril, if you're out there, we miss you, buddy. Come back.
Yeah, we're gonna put up like the missing persons poster right now.
That's right. Or a crudely drawn, a children's drawing of him. Like, have you seen me?
That yeah, just send me the description after, Steven, and I'll
And
get my
you'll just do it.
4-year-old. No, I'll get my 4-year-old to draw it, and it'll be accurate enough. We'll find him for
Have
sure.
a little bit. I mean, Flip did those drawings. He's the writer. He also made those
Yeah,
drawings because he did a lot of the art. And he drew a bunch of them, of the different drawings of the mean one. And the funny thing is that, like, because it's supposed to be her drawing, like, draw what it looks like, and then it's the crayon thing.
yeah.
But and they're taking it serious. Like, they have to take it so serious or the joke doesn't work. And he did some that were like genuinely horrifying, that where it's just like like every horror movie's got a creepy kid's drawing of like, here's the Mothman looks like.
Yeah.
And Weapons had a bunch of them too. And I was like, no, no, we need the one that's like the dumb one. We can't have the like,
Yeah.
oh no, he's creepy. And it just turns around. And he's like, is this what you're looking for? Like, it's just, it never fails to get a laugh. I love being in the room when that happens. And I'm like, if you're not laughing, then we're in a lot of trouble because
Yeah.
the rest of it's gonna go. It just gets dumber from here, folks. Like, I hope these.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't go like creepy kid drawing it and you went with that iteration of it. So throughout the doc, I mean, we see a lot of like ebbs and flows, like ups and downs you would assume with filmmaking, like you guys are pulling together. But there's such a confidence that's built that like you guys are doing it. Now it's happening. Even as an audience member who's watched the film is watching the doc, I'm like, yeah, like, well, I mean, I know it comes to fruition and it gets put out. But then one of the most detrimental wrenches in the plan is that this was supposed to be put out on streaming just before Christmas time, I believe, which makes perfect sense. Your editing, I don't know if you showered or like I don't even know how you have hair still. I was gonna
Not
say
generally. Yeah.
like your hair is phenomenal, and I don't know how you have any after watching the documentary because yeah, you were like living it,
It's all
man.
gray now. That's what it is.
Yeah, okay, so it's just pigmentation, yeah.
Yeah, just
But
much grayer.
for me, what was interesting is that the so this one is a little bit of a spoiler, but I think it's important talking about. So like you pivot and like everyone's defeated. Like we're not going to get it on streaming. I would have thought streaming would be easier to get into than getting in a theater. But instead, you made a few phone calls, got into theater, and it started spreading like wildfire, which I thought was so cool. But if you could explain quickly why it was such an obstacle, like where as an audience member who doesn't know much and is like ignorant to the whole process, I would think streaming is just like, here, I have a film. Can you stream it now? I thought it would be a lot harder to get into theater.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is it is. It's just a door we never approached, right? So
Hmm.
like if you want to be on an iTunes or Amazon, it's not iTunes anymore, but Apple TV, Amazon, Fandango, there's a relatively straightforward path to go there. If you want to be
Hmm.
on a streamer, it has to be licensed. So like we're on Peacock, we're on Tubi. You need a representative, and the distributor typically goes to them and says, "Hey, you should put this on your platform," and they review it. They check the technical specifications. Do they think the people that have this would like it? Blah blah blah. But with the theater side of things, we went directly to the theaters through a distributor that we hadn't approached because our tiny little movie is supposed to be like a high end TikTok, low end SNL digital short. Like it was supposed to be
Yeah.
so small. So we're like, okay, let's just start knocking on all the doors. And it was post COVID, and they liked the movie, but they said, you're in a unique spot. Most people have already picked their release dates months and months and months out. You have a finished movie, you've got nowhere to put it, and it's the week before Avatar comes out. No one
Hmm.
wants to put the movie in theaters the week before Avatar because next week everyone's going to go see Avatar and no one's going to go see their movie. So if you're
Yeah.
cool with being in theaters for just 1 week, we think that's a vulnerable weekend and you could jump in and you get your 1 week and maybe if you're lucky you get to week two, but then that'll be it because Avatar is going to knock you out. And Regal got behind us and they said, we're down, let's do it. And then they started playing the trailer with Violent Night, and it was going to be a much smaller release. And they started playing the trailer with Violent Night, and someone at Regal was in the room at Violent Night when the trailer played, and everybody laughed in the movie theater. And so
Yeah.
then they called us up and like, do you want more screens? And so the film sort of expanded from there. And we're like, uh-oh, I mean, yeah, we'll take them. The movie's still not done. They didn't know that. The movie's still not done. Away we go. And so it wasn't that it's easier to get in theaters. It was more the right person saw it. And it was the perfect storm of like, there's an opening. No one else can take it because it's too late for them.
Yeah.
Um, and you didn't turn in your master yet because the movie wasn't done. So I guess if you sent it to us on Monday, it would be in the theater on Friday. That'd be okay. So we had like 10 days to promote that it was going to theaters, and then it just got extended and extended, and the rest is history. But it was one of those, it would never work again. But that one time it was just the perfect storm and everything lined up, and we just sort of like bobbed and weaved and
Yeah.
found our way into onto the big screen.
You know, the mean one, the lesson we'll keep saying is that when you're a hustler and you're kind and you're a good person, things will come together for you because I'm sure you were sweating. I mean, I know you were sweating. I saw the documentary
Yeah, it was
and
bad. It was
making
was
a lot of phone calls.
some late long nights. What I will say is, something the lesson, and I say it a bunch, and I may have said it before, but it really does take the same amount of ego to say your movie is perfect as it does to say your movie is worthless. So you owe it to yourself and to the movie to swing for the fences because how do you know? It's not up to you. Like you don't get to decide if you smell bad. That's up to other people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I really think there is a thing where like if you sell yourself short, like you're going to shoot the horse in the barn before it even runs the race. Like so
Mm.
sometimes you got to just swing for the fences and then let the theaters decide if it needs to, if it should play for 5 weeks. Let the audiences decide if they want to watch this thing again, if they want to buy the merchandise. Like, oh, it's just a little movie, it's just me. Like, don't imposter syndrome, you can't let that beat you because it's not up to you whether your
Yeah.
thing has value, especially if it's art. Like it's up to the world.
Yeah, you put it out there and it takes on a life of its own. Um, so we mentioned at the beginning, you obviously did Screamboat. There was the announcement of Screamboat 2. So I mean, there's a ton of great momentum. But what's one thing that you learned about yourself as a filmmaker that maybe showed up when, say, making Screamboat, that you discovered in yourself, or maybe you learned in the process of making the mean one on such a tight budget with all these highs and lows?
Mm. I think the biggest thing I learned was who you who you choose to create with when you're in the trenches,
Mhm.
making a movie is really important. Whether it's people that have your back and are going to support you and believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Um, and I also think, on a long enough timeline, things tend to work out. So we had a lot of crazy things that happened on Screenboat. Every independent film has something where you're like, yeah, my dad owns the spaceship that we're going to shoot on. And it burnt down and we have no spaceship for our movie and we have to shoot next week. Like every independent film has those issues, but it definitely taught me like, step back, take a breath. It's probably going to work out.
Mm.
It usually works out for the better. And so even when things get tough, I'm like, 6 months from now, we're going to look back on this. Maybe we're not going to laugh, but the solution, everything happens for a reason. And I
Mhm.
think, 3 years after finding out my movie was not going to come out at all for Christmas, after we had told
Yeah.
the entire planet Earth that it was coming, like that was a dark day. And
Yeah.
to look back on it now and be like, man, I got to thank those guys that screwed us over because it led to everything. All the best things I have in my life, with the exception of my wife, are because of what I thought was like career-ending, soul-crushing shit
Yeah.
show. so,
Yeah. W-
so
That celebratory
yeah,
moment in the dock when you guys got together, you kind of like cheers and had popped some champagne, rightfully so, very well deserving. But like again, as an audience member, I think I ran and poured some whiskey. I'm like, yeah, like th this thing happened, and I know the end result. I know it came out. But again, it speaks to like I think even why we're here, and I think if you enjoy the mean one, even if okay, you know what, even if you haven't watched the mean one, I'd say that's first bit of homework is watch the mean one. But the documentary. Yes, it's cool. You're gonna see a lot of behind the scenes, and if you're there to see like David get in makeup, that's fun. But this whole story that's told, and the highs and lows, as we've mentioned throughout, this is like a great theme. But it's really just friends, like you said. I think the trenches analogy is great because when you band together,
mhm.
like you make it work. And a testament to like the true definition of indie film. Steven, before we wrap up here, where can everyone go watch both the mean one and then the documentary as well?
Yeah, well, the mean one is on all the AVOD platforms, all of the platforms that are free, right? So you can watch it on Tubi, you can watch it on Pluto, Freevee, all that stuff,
Hmm.
Amazon Prime. And then to watch the documentary, that Christmas Chaos, Making the Mean One, is also on Amazon Prime. It's included with your subscription, so you can watch both movies. I would recommend watching the movie first and then watch the
Yeah.
doc because going in the reverse order might be a little bizarre because the documentary has a lot of spoilers.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're both available. They're both free, and pour yourself some whiskey or some mulled wine,
Oh
and
yeah. Mhm.
eat a Christmas cookie and spend the night with the mean one.
that is the ultimate pairing. One last thing, Screenboat 2 you announced right off of your win with the Fangoria Awards. Is there a timeline for that in terms of even maybe when you're getting into production, or am I probing too much here?
Where I can tell you that the I don't want to shoot anything until the script is spectacular and we love
Okay,
it. And the new movie has more monster, more mayhem, just more of everything. So there's a
nice.
lot of, design work. All the elves are hard at work, not even building things, but we're just like conceptualizing. How are we going to do that? How are we going to do this? I mean, you really want to do the thing you already did, but more? I mean, like I will say that I can tell you that the number of sequel jokes is higher than you'd think because nothing stays dead. And we're very excited to poke fun at it. So it's gonna be a wild ride, I can assure you.
I love it. All right, Steven, thank you so much, man, for doing this, and thank you to those who are listening. And it is Christmas time, so be kind to each other. Yes, as Steven mentioned, pour yourself some whiskey, a drink, whatever it might be, and let me know like what you think of the mean one in the comments, what you think of the documentary after, what you drank while having it, because this is what it all comes down to is just friends sharing drinks and watching great film. And Steven, there's no shortage of great film coming from you, man. So cheers and Merry Christmas, man.
Cheers, buddy. Merry
Cheers.
Christmas.